Today, we'll discuss the tools for product managers to achieve their desired outcome. You don't need a roadmap, you need options. You don't need a backlog, you need bets. My name is Zach Burgess, and I currently practice product management at Spotify. This board was co-created with Matt Lane, a product strategist. We synthesize and build off the work from Teresa Torres and Ryan Singer. In this video, we're going to focus on discovery. The board has three top-level sections: a worked example, which you're able to see the tools in action, and we'll spend most of the video here. The explanations, which gives you step-by-step instructions so you can apply these tools on your own. And then templates, which allows you to copy and paste and apply these tools immediately. There's also a Toolkit navigator that you can click on. You can go to by clicking any of these arrows. And when you go to the Toolkit navigator, you're then given a list of hyperlinks. And these are references to different parts of the board. If we click on the worked example, we will see everything within it. Let's first look at the two sections of the worked example: company level and the team level. The company level is all about the company and product strategy, and this influences the team. And vice versa, the team will also influence the company. A product manager will typically work within the team level, and within the team, it is divided between discovery, delivery, and ways of working. Discovery is deciding what to build, delivery is building it, and ways of working gives us a cadence and structure to these activities. Let's zoom into discovery with the context that we are a video streaming service like Netflix. The first section is called user research, and the purpose of user research is to understand the experience of the customer. Within this, we have an experience map, and this tool can be used independently or with another tool like continuous interviewing. If your team does not have an experience map, I recommend that each person make their own experience map, and as a team, synthesize them and bring them together. Maybe you'll have similar activities within the experience map, and you'll dedupe those as a team. In this specific example, we have a friend saying, "Hey, this is a great show," to another friend, and then that friend tells us, who we then go and search on Netflix, and maybe we cannot find our content. We go to another platform, and then we find the show that we want to watch. We watch the show ends, and then the cycle repeats itself. And the key here is that we want to use pictures and not words to describe these activities. And it's also important to note that you can create the experience maps every time you do an interview, which will be in the next section. So we also have an activity that I'm calling continuous interviewing plus an interview snapshot. Now, Teresa, she considers the weekly interview as the keystone discovery habit that will unlock these activities, these tools, as well as the other ones that we'll be discussing in our video together. Whenever I have these interviews, which is once a week, you want to have an outcome in mind, an outcome of what you're trying to accomplish in that interview. And I typically invite 1 to 2 engineers with me so that the rest of the team has context for the customer problem. When you invite the rest of the team, the other team members will also hear other things in the interview that you yourself did not catch because you're thinking about something else in that moment. And whenever you go into an interview, what you want to do is distinguish between a research question and an interview question. The research question is what you want to find out. So maybe in this example, we want to find out about how someone chooses to watch sports. And you can directly ask somebody that question, but as a human being, we really need context to recall correctly. And so instead, you want to ask about the last time that they watched a sports show. And in this interview, you're really collecting the experience of the person that you're interviewing. And you want to focus on what their problems are and not so much your product. If in the interview they start specifying solutions, I recommend asking, what does that do for you? And that brings you back up into the opportunity space. So if you've never had an interview before, you can start with any customer, whether that's a current customer, a prospective customer, or maybe a churn customer. And over time, you want to maximize the variety of interviews so you can collect as much of the experience as possible. And after interviewing a person, you want to then make an interview snapshot. And that's what this visualization here is. And this helps you remember what you talked about, and it allows the qualitative information to be shared with others. So let's walk through this for a moment. The first thing that you'll notice is there's a photo of the person. This is for recollection, as well as quick facts to give a context about them. Myself, I grew up in Oklahoma with a family that watches a lot of football. And during this interview, you can think of myself being interviewed. I was trying to, for my last sports show, I was trying to set up watching sports before the upcoming season, watch football before the upcoming season. And I have a memorable quote up here. It says, "It was such a pain to sign up during the off season." And what had happened in my own experience, which is listed off in the experience map, I tried to sign up during the off season for watching Oklahoma football, and I wasn't able to. And we have some insights that are listed here, which is key details that you're not able to take action on yet, but you might be able to in the future. And then we have opportunities, which are customer needs, pain points, and desires that your team could take action on sooner. And the interview snapshot is shown, is completed after your interview. So the user research is the first set of activities within Discovery. And next we have what Matt and I are calling an outcome tree. And you might ask, well, what is an outcome tree? And the way that we define this is it is a opportunity solution tree plus some additional business context. So we zoom in for a moment. The additional business context is in black, and the OST, opportunity solution tree, it is in color. And if you're unfamiliar with an OST, an opportunity solution tree, let's dive in for a moment. And the purpose of an OST is it gives you those options to reach your desired outcome. And at the top of the tree, you have that desired outcome. So in this case, we want to increase the median monthly sports sessions for sports fans by one session a month, while ensuring our North Star metric, which is monthly median sessions. And this is framed from the business perspective and is within a team's control. Below the opportunity, or below the desired outcome, you have your opportunity space, and that is what is in green. This is your second layer to the OST. And these are needs, desires, and pain points framed from the customer perspective. So at the top, we have, I like to binge watch my favorite show. I want to watch from anywhere. Then we have another opportunity called I want a better viewing experience, and I can't find anything to watch. And then within each of these opportunities, there could be children opportunities, and within those there could also be children opportunities. And this can go in levels deep, and it's up to yourself as a team, maybe a trio, to do the critical analysis of figuring out what the relationships are between these opportunities. And the key point is that one opportunity should be independent of the other opportunities, at least in terms of solving it. And so that allows you to take a really broad problem, like increasing the amount of sessions for sports fans, and to make it something that's actionable. And those interviews that we had just talked about a moment ago, that opportunity section, those are inputs into the OST, and specifically into the opportunity. Once an opportunity is prioritized, you're able to go into the third section of the third level of the OST, and that is the solution space. And these solutions are different ways to solve a particular opportunity. So there are many ways to solve an opportunity, and these are examples of those. And then within each of your solutions, there's one more layer, and those are assumptions. And the assumptions in this case, it's in orange, and we have several different activities that will be testing those assumptions and generating them. But the point is that these assumptions are how you evaluate the solutions. And sometimes the assumptions are also shared across the solutions too. So we have the OST, and then there is a little bit of additional business context, and that's in black. We added the customer segment into our outcome tree, which is the subscribers. We have our North Star metric, which is above that, and that is those number of sessions that are at least 20 minutes a piece per month per subscriber, and then that rolls up to a business metric such as recurring revenue. And I also want to note that within this OST, we added the specific team. We're calling it the Netflix New Business Team, and together this represents an outcome tree. So within this tree, there are additional activities that you can do, and a big one is prioritizing opportunities. And the beauty of an OST is that you're able to compare and contrast siblings for for what you'll ultimately build. So, for example, if I were to prioritize an opportunity, I would first start at the top level where we have those 4 top level opportunities, and within each of those, I would compare them. And we have a prioritization framework that I'll show in a moment. And after you do that comparison on the top level, you will then do the comparison again at the next level until you are finally at a leaf opportunity in which you can prioritize. And you might ask, okay, like, Zach, how do you do the prioritization? And the answer is through a framework that helps you inform your decision, but you shouldn't take these as there's one that you must do because the output is some numerical value. And instead, what we want to do is acknowledge that prioritization really is an art form. And the best we can do is be informed about our decision, because nothing's certain. So how do we inform ourselves? We have 4 different columns, and the first one is a quantitative measure, which we're calling, and which Teresa calls opportunity sizing. And you ask the question, how many people are affected by this opportunity, and how often are they affected by it? We then have additional factors, such as the market factors, and you can ask yourself, how does addressing this opportunity affect ourselves in the market? We have company factors, and that's when you consider your organizational context, and we want to be supporting our company vision and mission. Because some companies will have different they'll have different desires and priorities, right? Google will have a different business organization than Apple will, and will solve different problems. And then we have the customer factors, which is how important is the opportunity to your customers. And by analyzing each of your opportunities, which we have examples here of I want to watch live sports versus I wish I knew what my friends were watching, you can make that decision to prioritize, let's say I want to watch live sports. And then within that prioritization, you can generate your solutions. Now, you really want to come up with at least 3 solutions for each of your opportunities. And it is possible to generate 20 or more solutions if you really work at it. And one way to do that is by having each person independently come up with solutions and then collectively put them together. And there has been some research showing that innovation is tied to how many solutions that you come up with. And so there's an incentive to spend that time there. In this case, we have 3, and those 3 are integrating local networks into our service to watch those live sports. Another one is licensing the broadcast from specific leagues, and we serve those up ourselves. And the third option is that we bundle our service with another streaming service that already has live sports. And at that point, once you have a solution, let's say integrate local networks into our service, you then have a choice. You can either go into assumption testing if your team is not comfortable with that solution, or you could go straight into shaping a pitch. And a pitch is a shaped solution that gives structure to what your team is going to build, and it's really a bet that your team can build it. And you, as a product trio, so what's a trio? A trio usually consists of your product manager, your lead engineer, and your designer, who are attending, let's say, the interviews together and doing prioritization. You can have the rest of the team if you'd like, but the 3, then that number helps you move quickly, because if you have to have consensus with everybody, then it's very difficult to move quick. And so with your trio, it's all about how comfortable you are. And in this case, we're not comfortable with going straight into writing a pitch. So instead, we're going to assumption test and really pull apart this solution. And that's where we come to the next section, which is generate assumptions. And there are many ways that we can generate assumptions. We'll talk about 2 today. The first one is hosting a pre-mortem, and this is where you assume your product has failed and you ask the question, why did it fail? And you might come up with, well, no one wanted to watch sports on our platform. And that is an assumption about this solution. In fact, that's an assumption about all those solutions, is that people want to watch sports on Netflix. Another way to generate your solutions is with a user journey. And that's what is in the top here. So we have 3 actors: the subscriber, the platform, Netflix, and local channel, which is who we're getting the sports from. And then we have different activities that each of them do. So the the subscriber will first visit the platform. And then the platform is going to serve up different sports options. And the subscriber will view those options, choose the sports show that they want to watch. The local channel will deliver the sports show, and then the subscriber is going to watch that event. And within each of these, there are a set of corresponding assumptions. And the top here says desirability. Our subscriber wants to watch the sports. And there are 4 common types of assumptions, desirability being a big one, especially as a product manager you want to address. And that answers the question, does anyone want it? There is viability, which is whether we should build it, and if any stakeholders would say no if we do. There is feasibility, which is can we build it? And then there is usability, which is asking, do users understand the solution? There's also ethical assumptions that you could consider, as well as maybe security assumptions, especially if you're in an internal tools team. The added benefit of using a user journey is that you specify more clearly what your solution is. Because if we go to those words of integrate local networks into our service, I would have my own interpretation of this, and then somebody else in the team will have theirs. And that's where now it's more clear of what that solution actually means. So after we generate these assumptions, the next question is, what do you do with them? Now you've got at least 20 here. Do you need to test all those? And the answer is probably not. So in the assumption testing, we have our first activity, which is putting each of these assumptions onto a map. And the axes are unknown and high importance. That's the top right. And so the most unknown assumptions that are most important are going to be your priority 1, which in other words is called leap of faith assumptions. And you don't want to bet on building anything that has outstanding leap of faith, because the chances that you have it right the first time are pretty slim. And so the purpose is that as a team, you guys can plot each of the assumptions on this map and pick the ones that are the furthest in the top right. And as you run your tests, they will become more known. And when they're more known, they can move left onto on the grid, and they will be less risky. So when you choose one, you're going to run a test. This one is about our desirability, if subscribers want to watch sports, and we can run an assumption test. Now, assumption tests are pretty interesting, because what we want to do is convert this assumption into a hypothesis that you can test, and that's difficult. So how do you do it? Well, there are 4 common types of tests that will take care of most of your use cases. They are the prototype, the one-question survey, data mining, and a data spike. And there's more details for each of these in the explanation section of the board. We'll focus on the prototype. And the first question that you want to ask is, what are you going to introduce into the world? What is that stimulus? And in this example, we are going to present a sport option to 4 upcoming and local sporting games on our platform. And I think that subscribers will engage with at least one of those sports options. And then you ask yourself, well, who is going to participate in this test? And you really want to give yourself the best shot, right? Because if you can't get, the idea is that if under the best conditions, if you can't prove your hypothesis true, or at least get it more evidence that it's true, then it's probably not. And so in this example, we are going to target subscribers who have searched for a local sports team or a sports game, let's say the Oklahoma Sooners, on our platform within the last month. And we're going to start small with 10 participants. And the reason why we're starting small is that this is our first test, and we don't want to have a big commitment. We want to do things quick to make a decision, right? Everything here is what's the minimum amount of information you need to make a decision. And the next part of this is deciding, well, what metric are you going to use to decide whether the hypothesis passed or failed? And maybe your team comes up with the metric that it's the number of people who click on the sports header and then on more information for that game that we present to the subscriber. And at least 3 of the 10 people must click on that more information for this hypothesis to be validated. And we're going to run it for 1 week. So if we put that all together, we could say that 3 or more of the 10 sports subscribers will click on the sports header and click on the sports game within 1 week. And now we have the why section. Why will the stimulus impact the metric? And this is an important box because this helps us guard against being data driven. We want to be data informed. Data driven means that you are a robot and you're just going to do whatever the data says, even if you do not understand it. And that's where putting the why in, it helps us understand why would the stimulus impact the metric. In this case, the sports subscribers will engage with the relevant game when they have the option as they like the sports. And the point here also is you may have heard of other companies that they love to do tests, and maybe they'll test 25 colors for for their brand and see which has the most engagement. And if you don't have a reason for each of those colors, then you don't have a why, right? And you're just doing what the data says, and you're in fact being data driven versus being informed about the decision that you as a human being are going to take. Then after you've done that due diligence, there's still a little bit more to do. And that is deciding what action are you going to take as a result of the data. And there are 3 cases. It's whether the hypothesis passed, failed, or is flat. And flat is in the case of, let's say you're doing an A/B test and there was nothing significantly statistically significant. Okay, so if it passes, maybe you'll test the assumption again with 1,000 people, and you'll become more confident, right? You'll have more evidence. But if it fails, maybe your team has a lot of conviction with this hypothesis, with this assumption, right? And you'll mine the search logs for sports queries that are related to live sports, maybe Dallas Cowboys, Oklahoma Sooners, and you'll calculate the % of subscribers that searched for live sports within the last month. And this could be your hedge against a false negative, which is a possibility. And then after you run the assumption test, you can collect the results of your assumption tests, right? So at the top here, we have the different experiments, different assumption tests that are run, and we indicate whether they passed, failed, or they're in progress. And so after you have run your assumption tests and your team is comfortable with your assumptions, you are then ready to get into the delivery phase. And that's where you'll be doing the shaping of a pitch that your team would build. And that pitch is a bet that they could build it in a time box. And that's what we'll cover in the next video, is the delivery. So if you want to apply these tools now, I recommend that you go to the template section and you can copy and paste this one right here, and you can put it into your own board. Looking forward to our next video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.